Dan was a member there.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting for March 10th, 2020. Julie, could you please call the roll?
Mark Berry.
Present.
Leanne Charlo.
Present.
Julie Gottschall, present. Andy Duran, absent. And Richard Hegg.
Present.
Ann Hill.
Present.
John Rose.
Present.
All right, we've got a quorum when we can begin, so if everybody would please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First thing we do in every meeting is offer the opportunity for public comment. If anybody would like to address the board, please do so now. Not seeing any. We also offer the opportunity for board members to offer a discussion item for, a brief discussion item for tonight, or the offering of an agenda item for a future agenda. If anybody has something they'd like to raise, please do that. Or if not now, send myself or Jean an email in the future, and we can make sure we'll get it on an agenda. And then we're going to some exciting fun stuff. We're going to rearrange the typical meeting today to do an approval for a big position in our district. And tonight, the board is asked to approve the contract for the new Director of Student Services, Ms. Tracy Rorick. And Jean, I think, has something she's going to read about that.
Actually, I am reporting out for Lisa, who would have loved to be here but had an event in her own district. Dr. Leali actually designed the interview process for the Director of Student Services. We went through resumes together. We had about 20 some odd applications. We picked 6 people to screen, 6 screener interviews. I did the screeners, and then I went through all of that information with Dr. Leali. She picked the final 3 candidates. February 27th, there were 3 groups. There was a staff group, a parent group, and an administrator group. The administrator group included Andy Duran, was our board volunteer, Kurt Schneider, who's our superintendent for our special ed co-op, Nancy Goldberg, who will be the executive assistant, and Jay. And the 3 candidates all interviewed with each group, and there was 1 candidate that rose to the top because, according to Lisa, of her thoroughness of her answers, her knowledge and background of students with special needs and special services, and all of the different certifications she have. And that person was Tracy Rorick. Tracy,
Our very own.
Our very own Tracy Rorick. Tracy has been in a couple elementary school districts as a special ed teacher. She's a behavior interventionist. When I got here, she was here 2 or 3 years. She was the behavior interventionist. I quickly had an eye on her when we added the assistant principal at the elementary school my first year and appointed Tracy, which has been nothing but great things. So I'm excited about that. She has been attending all of our admin meetings. In the interim, she also has become our trainer for restraint training. What's that called, CPI? And she has her Director of Special Education certification. So I'm just really excited, and as Lisa shared with the staff in both buildings this week, we are very, very excited for Tracy to join Lisa's team. And with that, I think I'm going to have you call for approval of the contract, and then we'll have Tracy come up.
Okay. Just real briefly before I do that, because there might be millions of people watching on television, can you explain in general, what the Director of Student Services will do? I know that's subject to some variation when our new super starts, but perhaps.
Our Director of Student Services is going to be overseeing all students that have individual educational plans, students that are being tested for possible IEPs, 504 plans, our nursing services, our psych and social worker services. Lisa's other duties as assigned have been EL, or our English language learners. And then we have, as I've shared before, this growing parking lot of things that Kevin has done that we have to assign different people. And so those are kind of undecided right now. Lisa will handle that. But very, very active in the schools with teachers, planning for different interventions with kids, testing, coming to consensus on plans. So it's very, very interactive with all stakeholders.
Great, thanks. All right, may I have a motion to approve the Director of Student Services 2020-2021 contract for Tracy Rorick beginning July 1, 2020, as presented by the administration?
So moved. Second.
Is there any comments, questions, concerns that anybody would like to voice? Congratulations. I've got to take a vote.
We gotta vote first. We gotta vote.
So,
You can still come up, but we gotta take the
I'm gonna
vote.
call the roll.
so can you please call the vote,
So
please?
I will call the roll now with happiness. John Morozen?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo? Yes. Julie Gottschall, yes. Richard Hegg?
Yes.
Ann Hill?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Yes, so the motion is approved. Now I can say congratulations. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Working at the elementary school for the past 11 years has been truly an honor, and I am really excited to take on this new role as the Director of Student Services, and I look forward to serving this community in this new capacity. So thank you so much, and I also want to thank my family, my husband Carlos, and my son Trevor.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, we're excited.
Okay.
We're an elbow bump.
Or an elbow bump.
Our elbow bump. Jazz hands. So normally we do that. I didn't even think about that with coronavirus, so just kind of wave at everybody.
Yeah, right.
We're excited to have you.
Thank you. I am as well.
The kids will be better off. Thank you.
Trevor and Carlos, thanks so much for coming. And you guys are more than welcome to go ahead and go after this, just so you know. Or if you want to stay, that's fine.
I'm sure you want to stay.
Okay, so we are going to follow that with, I'll wait just a second. So it's
Congrats.
hard to follow that, but we're going to follow that with actually some other good news that I'm going to let Jay read the press release, but we recently got some great news regarding our bond rating, so I'm going to let you do the whole show.
The Board of Education and Administration are pleased to announce that on March 2nd, 2020, S&P Global Ratings assigned a AAA credit rating to the district's upcoming refunding bond issue, which is the highest possible credit rating a school district may achieve. Given the very low interest rate environment, the district's leadership recently decided to refund or refinance its callable 2010 bonds for interest savings. As a part of the refunding process, it asked S&P to provide a credit rating for the bond issue. Pursuant to the report provided by S&P, the district was able to achieve the AAA rating because of its affluent tax base, very strong financial reserves, and moderate debt burden. S&P also noted the district's effective management practices and policies. Achievement of the AAA rating will maximize investor interest in the district's bond issue and will also enable it to secure the lowest possible municipal bond rate available on the market. The district plans to sell the refunding bonds on March 11th, which is tomorrow.
Do you want to go ahead and give your report, since we're on the bonds now, rather than wait till later?
But I'd also just like to point out the amount of work that went into getting this, that Jay and Jean, but largely Jay, for busting his hump, brought this to the district, and I think we all owe him a debt of gratitude for all that work, so.
I'd also like
thanks.
to point out that the board did this was also a board achievement. I think they really liked the fact that we had fund balance policies and that we followed them and that we have strong reserves, and that's been a very strong focus of the board over these past many years, so I think everybody deserves a pat on the back, and I think we have a lot of interest in our bond rating.
They did bring up questions about how long all of you had been on the board. Stability was a really huge piece for them. They were getting to how long our admin team had been together, how long the board had been. They asked us questions like, how often do you review your fund balance policy? How often do you do projections? And it was just, we were set up for that because of all the work everyone's done, so. Jay was on fire that day, though, I have to tell you. They were firing questions, and he was coming back before I could even think of an answer. He was on fire.
It's awesome.
Having said that, we're planning to sell the bonds tomorrow, March 11th. I got a call today from Tammy at PMA. And due to some of the gyrations in the markets over the past couple of days because of the craziness with the pandemic, she is considering delaying the bond sale. In general, this is a very good time to buy bonds because there is so much uncertainty and the stock market is down. People are looking to get into bonds because they're more stable and secure. So I think we'll do very well in this issue, especially with the credit rating. But given the fact that the markets were way up today due to some announcements, that she just wants to take the temperature of the bond market and see what the mood is in the morning before committing to the sale. So she's going to call me in the morning. If we decide to delay, it would be next Monday. We still want to get it in before the Fed policy meeting next week. So if it is a delay, it will be a few days. And she said repeatedly, it's a very straightforward offering. We're just refunding our bonds. We've got a good credit rating. It's a very good purchase. So she thinks we'll do very well. She just wants to make sure that the timing is right.
How many basis points do we save with the AAA versus the AA?
Several.
Couple,
It depends on the market, but 5 maybe to 10. I don't.
All good.
And no matter what happens, we're still going to be saving taxpayers significant monies.
Yeah,
So.
it still is a very good. The refunding is still a smart thing to do. So.
Oh, yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Khan? Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
Good work, Jay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good work. Okay, so we're going to move on to reports, and I think we start with an elementary school report. And
Actually, Margaret and Nate are going to come up together.
Together, middle school and elementary school report.
Talk about our absolute favorite subject of all times.
Coronavirus, but we are taking it very seriously, actually, and we know that things are changing every day. Jean just asked us to give you an update on some things we're doing at the school buildings to be as cautious as possible. So Kevin recently printed out hand washing signs and instructions for hand washing from the CDC. We already had them in our bathrooms, but we have them in every classroom by the sink, and teachers are reviewing those processes. As an aside, if you sing Hail Purdue while you're washing your hands, that's long enough. I just found out, someone sent me as a text. We also have hand sanitizing stations that we purchased, so right by the office door, the entrance into the hallway. So if we have visitors that come in, we're asking them to use that on their way into the building, as well as several in the cafeteria. And then our nurses and office are tracking our absences and in regard to illness. So trying to see if there are any clusters of other illnesses as well. We've had influenza and stomach flu and strep throat and things like that. So they really spend a couple of hours every day tracking what illnesses students have that are absent and making sure that we are preventing any further spread.
So in addition to that, the night crew is being especially diligent, deep cleaning and sanitizing a lot of surfaces that get touched by our students and staff, door handles, tabletops and surfaces throughout the building. One of the things that we also have implemented for the purposes of sanitizing all of the student-issued and teacher-issued laptops are very large buckets full of electronic safe sanitizing wipes, and we're implementing those in classrooms and asking students to regularly wipe down their computers just to try and keep those things clean. And of course, we have all of the same signage at the middle school that we have at the elementary building, reminding students to wash their hands. They're up in all the bathrooms and all the stalls and throughout the building.
So when Kevin asked me before if I needed them for home, he wasn't joking. He has them ready.
Totally. I have a
Come in a
question.
big, large bucket, so enough for the rest of your lifetime.
John has a question, too.
I was talking to Kelly. My son happens to be a scientist whose specialty are viruses, and he's been sounding the alarm for probably 6 weeks with my wife and I in terms of getting ready and getting prepared. And the warning he sounded today was quite frightening, actually. How are we prepared, let's assume, over the next month or so, if schools are not in session?
Yep,
And,
Jean has been working closely on that, so I know that she
Okay.
That's part
put
of my
answers for
report.
you.
Okay,
Yeah.
Because
just to make sure.
that's a
we're
big question, so.
Do you want me to pull up the website as well?
Yeah, if you could pull up the website, if you don't mind, I'll do my report before yours.
Cool.
Thanks, you guys. You guys are.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I knew that, but it is something that we've talked about, and then talking with our partner schools as well, so I know Jean will give.
I do have a
got
question.
it.
How are the students doing with this? Are they attentive to the directives you're giving, and are they panicked at all, or are they pretty much taking it in stride?
I would say at the elementary school, just like anything else, you have a wide range of responses. So you have everything from a first grader coming back last week from being sick, announcing that he had coronavirus, which was not the case. And when I spoke to him, he broke into tears. "That's what I was told," he said. And we talked with Mom, and he did not have it. And so we actually created talking points for our teachers to use with students, so that for any range of response, then teachers are kind of being consistent in their response to students, and it's really around prevention and just facts, such as there is no one at Lake Bluff Elementary School who has coronavirus right now, and here are the ways that we can help to prevent that and to keep healthy. So there's a range, but we just work with them individually as we do in any type of school situation.
I would say at the middle school, they've definitely been receptive. I wouldn't suggest to you that we align our science curriculum to current events, but in sixth grade science, this happens to align precisely to the virus and bacteria unit, and so there's been lots of opportunities for conversation, particularly in the sixth grade science classrooms. So they've not only been attentive, but evaluated on this. So, yeah.
A silver lining,
Yes,
then, right?
yes, indeed.
Good.
I have a general question that I don't know who answers it, but have we had any problems getting the supplies we need for, sanitizers, wipes, whatever it is we purchase?
There definitely are limited quantities, so we have a pretty good supply, and we found some alternative supplies. There's lots of products out there, so there was some deeper cleaning stuff that I had ordered that is now on back order, so I'm expecting it at the end of the month, but for the most part, we have what we need.
And fortunately, our head of technology did get those wipes for the laptop. She was thinking about it last week, so I think we were a little ahead of the game on that one. So they did arrive this week and probably will not be in stock here pretty shortly.
The only other thing I would add, and I know Margaret touched upon it, is just a reminder and a request to all parents that when they do call in their child sick, that they provide us with as much information as they can in terms of symptoms. This is before, of course, even coronavirus became an issue. It helps our nurses to be able to track trends within the building. If there's certain illnesses that are common and reoccurring, it's just helpful if there's parents able and willing to give us as much information as possible. So just a public request for that.
Thanks.
I'm going to move right into my report. We have our website in front of you, and Kevin has done an outstanding job of updating that daily. So if you click in, just maybe what you want to do is show everybody what's on there, Kevin. We get all of our information from the CDC, the Illinois Department of Health, the Lake County Department of Health. So there is all the different guidance documents are all on here for parents to look at, complete with symptoms, what we can be doing now. You heard what we're doing now: extra cleaning, extra hand washing, keeping our families informed. The communication is very important. I am keeping in contact with not only all these things, but our Illinois State Board of Ed sent out some guidance yesterday and today that I'll be sharing with you in a minute. My Lake County Superintendent group continues to be the group that I get the most information from. We share letters home. We talk about, I know one of the things I'm going to be talking about tomorrow is, have any of you asked for parents to fill out forms for vacation? Lake Forest High School put out a letter this afternoon asking for that. I know Stevenson High School's done it. We all talked last Friday about everything ranging from disinfectants. These guys all know I'm at this meeting because I'm texting all of them. Did you do this? Did you do this? Can we get this? And it really helps me think through what we need to be doing, just talking it all through with everybody. I think that communication with families and staff is really important. Jay's been ordering the extra cleaning and disinfectants. There was one that everybody's recommending, that's the one he's talking about, that's out of stock right now. We're supposed to get relatively shortly. One of the extra things that we started on last Friday, because I knew where we were going, or last Thursday, is planning for e-learning. Now, as of yesterday, we could only use 5 e-learning days. And if you remember back in the fall, I brought that to you as a board and said, I would like you to approve that we can do this. We would have up to 5 days, and we'll use it only in the case of if we use a lot of emergency days this year. The guidance that we've been getting almost from day one is prepare for schools to be closed for an indefinite amount of time. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't read a crystal ball, but I did want to be totally ready if today we found out somebody had been infected or exposed, that we could close. So we've got 5 e-learning days planned out. We're going to perfect that a little bit on Friday when we meet. We still have 5 emergency days that we can use. We did not use those this year. That buys me 10 days. Yesterday, when the governor came through and talked about we're now a state, we've declared a disaster area, that would actually allow several of the laws regarding e-learning to kind of be put aside. So if we needed to do e-learning over more than a 5-day period, we probably could at this point. We still need to be talking about that with teachers. We'll be meeting in our union group on Monday, and I'll be asking for some advice on them, for them to furnish that for us. Nobody really knows what it would look like because we're not high school. So it would be impossible for us to do all totally online learning. Most districts are suggesting for elementary school districts that we combine e-learning with sending the old-fashioned packets home so that kids have that. The thing that we're going to still have to figure out is the accountability, because they need to be able, we need to make them accountable for it, but we also need to realize that parents are not going to be able to spend the entire day supervising that. Many of our parents work from home. Many of our parents may still be going to work, depending on what's going on at home. So we're trying to make it and plan for it as best as we can. I have sent out 2 letters, very informative letters to our community. I've had 2 notes, that's it, from parents. One was asking me about, have we considered quarantined kids going to the states that are already having higher numbers of cases? And my answer was that we align everything to what the CDC is saying is level 2 and level 3. And if you look at that site, every day it's changing. The other question was about, could I promise a family that their kids would be able to come back if they're going to Europe? I can't even promise school's going to be open tomorrow. I think it's going to be open tomorrow, but there are so many uncertainties now. Whenever we are advised that there may be an exposure, we are to call the Lake County Department of Health. I made a call on that last week. They said you have absolutely no concern. It was like 6 or 7 contacts down. We made another call today, and now that we've been declared a state of disaster, the state of Illinois, is it the Illinois Department of Health, Kevin, that answered today? They've assumed the role of answering those phone calls. So we're on top of it. We would certainly notify parents if we felt that there was a valid exposure, because we want to keep everybody safe. One of the things I will be stressing in my next letter is be very conscious and aware and kind. You know, if people are going on vacation and they know they've been exposed, we're counting on them to let us know that and keep our kids safe here. So all we can do is do our best with that. So I think that covers.
Gina, I have a question.
Yes.
Kind of a softball question based on a conversation that you and I had. So do you have authority to either, you personally, have authority to quarantine a student or close schools?
All right, there are two questions there. The first one I'm going to read right from the guidance we have. Who would make the decision to close schools? This is from the Illinois State Board of Ed. It says, local school districts acting in accordance with guidance from the Illinois Department of Health and local public health departments will make the final decision as to whether or not conditions require the closure of schools. So that's the one about closing schools. I was prepared to answer the question about, no, you cannot ban students yourself, but there was new guidance from the state that came out today at around 3:30, and according to Kevin, if families are traveling to any of these level 3 or level 2, we can tell them to stay home and self-quarantine now. But in order to do that, we have to know that's where they went.
Yeah.
Hence, we will most likely be sending that form out, so we can keep everybody safe.
Thank you. John, did that answer all of your questions?
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, from what I've been told, it's not a matter of if this happens, it's when it's
When.
going to happen. It's going to
That's
happen.
what we've been told too.
And it affects, as most of you already know, people over 60 more than it does kids. So teachers and administrators and people who happen to be of that age are more at risk, actually, than the kids are at this point, from what people seem to know about this. So
I think it might just be you and
There's
me,
yeah, Mark's over 50. But it's just, and you don't want to panic, but you want to be prepared. And I think it sounds like we're getting prepared. That's good.
I think we're being prepared, and we're certainly looking at every single bit of guidance that's coming out. But it's important that we follow the rules from especially the CDC, the Illinois Department of Health, and the Illinois State Board of Ed. A complication that will be coming up after spring break is state testing. So keep in mind that all the accountability and the rankings and everything is based on state testing. We may not even be in school.
Yeah, put an asterisk next to that one.
So just kind of keep that in mind. We could be in a whole new situation. I heard today that China went drastically down yesterday and today in their numbers, but they've been working with it since Christmas. So we just have to wait and see.
When they quarantine.
Can I ask you another question, Jean? I understand you, when people have kids sick, that you want at the elementary, middle school for them to leave some detail about the symptoms that they have. Are we asking people to do anything differently as far as evaluating, whether this is a cold or it's a, sore throat, like?
If you guys need to, you can step forward, but here's what I would tell you. Our nurses are so good at what they do that they've been chasing people down anyway to say, why is your child out? What are their symptoms? And that's how we discovered we had this very small pneumonia cluster this year over at the middle school. So my feeling is they're going back more with a vengeance, but they were doing it really anyway.
But what I meant by that is, are we asking parents to evaluate whether they send their kids to school any differently than they were before? Like, for example, we know that always if your child has a fever, they shouldn't come to school.
Right.
But
We go
maybe-
through the symptoms that are all listed on the
Yep.
Oh,
CDC
to
too.
look on
Yeah,
the-
that's exactly it. So in certain situations, they can ask for a doctor's note, they can ask for additional information from doctors. But in all situations, like if your child is sick and exhibiting any of those symptoms that are on our websites, that are talked about on TV often, there are public information lines from the Illinois Department of Public Health that are very easy to get a hold of that will tell you whether or not you should come in for an evaluation. So that's what actually they encourage people to do, is to call that public information line, talk about your symptoms, and then they will be able to go from there.
But our nurses are reinforcing what they're saying, fever-free for 24 hours.
Yep.
Fever of 100 and, I think it's 101.2 or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. But there's a list, and that's been in both letters that I've sent out. And it says right out, if your child has any of these symptoms, keep them home.
Okay.
Kids are learning to cough into their sleeves, the hand. I'm a big handshaking and hugging person, so that impacted me a lot. But, I think we really seriously have to be very careful at this point because from what I've heard, it's a lot more, it has the ability to expose a lot more people than the average flu A and B. So we're doing the best we can. Certainly if your child's in a school and they're getting a letter, send me copies. I've asked staff to do that too, because I'll pick and choose sentences that they have in there that I like. It's all in the spirit of sharing, so.
I like Jay's recommendation, jazz hands instead of.
That was not Jay's recommendation, that was my recommendation.
Oh, he stole it.
You know what, you just opened up a whole
It
new
just adds
can of
it
worms.
just adds an
Exactly.
element of fun, Kevin.
Yes, that is exactly it. It makes people smile. Yes, exactly. Yep.
All right, the minutes will say that.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to move on unless there's any other questions on the wonderful coronavirus. To discussions and presentations, we start with highlights of a recent conference, the AASA national presentation. Kelly and Kevin will give us some highlights from that.
And I'll introduce you guys while you're getting up there. Randy Blair, who we've been working with from Northwestern since the second year I was here, was talking to me about presenting the great work that has gone on in this district between Lake Bluff and Northwestern. We've actually tied in a third aspect this year, and that is involving ECRA to show data on how our students are doing in this particular arena. We presented a proposal to speak at the AASA conference, which is very, very choosy. It's hard to get your proposals approved. I found out I was going to be a grandmother the day before I found out, or the day after I found out our proposal was approved, and it was both the same day. So I sent Kelly and Kevin, because they've both done a lot of work with Randy and Northwestern, so I asked them to just show us a couple slides as to their presentation that they made at a national conference about our school district.
Exactly. So just so that you know, so AASA has, there's usually about 5,500 school administrators from across the country, and so that was the case, and it was in San Diego, and so that was really nice to see, and so our presentation was, it was a great deal of fun to put together, first of all, to reflect a little bit on our work, and then also to go out there and present, and then it also will allow Kelly and the rest of the team to go out there and present this probably at future conferences that are out there and really get Lake Bluff's name out there in terms of what is going on.
So our goal is really just to run you through the highlights. These are slides from the actual presentation. And so we wanted to make sure that anyone in attendance had some information about the background of not only Lake Bluff School District, but also the work that Center for Talent Development does. We shared information about gifted and enrichment best practices, and then we really wanted to zoom into the work, why we did what we did, where we started, why we started there, and then where we are now, and then share sort of the meaty outcomes and data that really shape our story and demonstrate the strong results of the decisions and work that we did.
So this is like really the 50,000-foot overview. It's an hour-long presentation, so we're not going to do it all for you.
I told them 10 minutes or
exactly.
less.
Yep, so you know a little
You're
bit
on
about
about
Lake
8.
Bluff, and so we actually described what Lake Bluff really is and what it looks like and the types of families that move to our community and why they move to our community and the sorts of people that live here and the sorts of students that are educated in our school district. And then the Center for Talent Development also did the same thing about how they actually got started and the work that they do at Northwestern. And then, for those of you who don't remember, actually, so day 2 of my job here in the district, Jean took me aside and said, hey, that gifted program and enrichment programming that we have in the district, it's not really working so well for families, and I did not actually know very much about gifted or enrichment programming, and so I actually needed somebody to partner with, and that's why we chose Northwestern. It's because they were right in our backyard. They were easily accessible, and we knew right away that they would be supportive of our work, and what actually we found along the way is that, what I found personally, is that actually working in gifted and enrichment programming is a lot like working on the other end of the spectrum with special education parents and families, just in a whole, it's with a whole different set of lenses. We really also learned that programming in our district needed to be assessed in order to get a true picture of what was happening, and so we did that through some off-level assessments. And then we also saw that there were some inequities in services for our high-achieving learners, and so we talked a little bit about that during our presentation. We also just gave a big, broad overview about some of our findings where we needed to take some action, and you all know about these, but where there was some lack of communication and transparency in our programming, that there was some limited gifted training and professional learning experiences for our teachers, and for other professional staff within our district, that our data ceilinged out, so that there was nothing to really identify our outliers. So that's why we actually brought in the off-level assessments, and that we needed to address the wide range that was in our classroom. So we really needed to do a whole lot more training, and there were some great practices that we already had in place that we also needed to maintain, and so we talked about those as well.
All right, so then we wanted to make sure that we acknowledged the work that happened. And so while I can speak personally to the many years that the work took, we decided to organize it into 4 categories. And there are or could be multiple slides to explain each of these areas, but in a brief summary, restructuring in terms of resources and staff, professional development, program development, and communication were the core areas that we targeted and hit upon, and we, in the presentation, elaborated on all of the ways that that looked and how we did that work.
So then we actually just sort of talked about sort of the students and some of our outcomes and our data story. We went into some depth about that to sort of drive home a little bit about what that looked like in our district, and then gave a little bit of an overview about where people could get started. So this is supposed to be always a practical presentation for school administrators to take back with them about where they could go on Monday morning when they got back to their district, and so that's what we were trying to do for them. And so actually we already know from people who have contacted us since they got back that that's exactly what it was.
And I think the last thing I would just add is it was really a privilege to be able to go and represent Lake Bluff School District in San Diego, and to learn. So I was sad that Dr. Sophie wasn't able to be a part of it, but certainly felt honored to be able to partner with Kevin and Center for Talent Development to share our story.
Yep.
And I think the next piece is Randy, who was one of the presenters from Northwestern. She's been asked to write a research document, peer-reviewed, so Lake Bluff will definitely be in that article in a very positive light for our work with our enrichment. So it was very exciting. Thanks to both of you. I appreciate it.
Who put the snazzy brochure together?
That was a collaborative effort,
It
but
is
Kevin has
totally
an eye
collaborative,
for
yeah,
graphic
exactly.
design.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you get Lake Bluff, ECRA, and Northwestern all together in one room.
It was
Yes,
pretty snazzy.
exactly, yes. So, cool, super fun.
Good,
There
thank
you go.
All right, good
Thank you
work.
very much.
So now we're going to move on to the second discussion item, and Mr. Khan's going to present on capital plans for 2021 and 22.
Does he have a snazzy brochure as well?
Don't have it.
Oh, jeez.
In fact, I'm just going to sit here.
He was busy getting our AAA
I
bond
know,
rating.
well,
So we don't have any big capital projects in the next few years, so nothing that's time-sensitive that needs to be bid out, so we're not bringing any approvals today. This is more just a discussion of what our priorities are for the next few years. In the long-term budgets, we have about $250,000 of capital spending per year going out, and then that may fluctuate depending on new property and some other variations as the years true up and we get more information. The biggest initiative is new classroom furniture. We have really innovative teaching in the district, and we're doing it on 1950s desks that are, like the chair and the desk are together, and they're all the same, and they're all on the line, and it really doesn't support our curriculum. So we're looking at new classroom furniture that will enhance our teaching, differentiated teaching styles, curriculum. We're looking for things that are flexible, that will have a cohesive look. Right now, we have kind of a mishmash of furniture that's comfortable. And so we have a furniture steering team of teachers and principals that meet to talk about what the options are. Our architect is representative, and our furniture vendor is involved. And so they are bringing different options and telling us what kind of the trends are in the industry. And then we talk with the teachers about their classroom management style and teaching style, and try to come up with something that will fit, something that we can buy that will be uniform across the district, but can be used flexibly in different classrooms, so that in grades 2, you might use the furniture differently than in grade 5, but it's all sort of the same furniture. The total cost of that will be probably $700,000 to $750,000, just based on a per classroom estimate, multiplied out by the number of classrooms. We'll be phasing this in. We won't be doing it all at once, but over several years, 3 to 4 years, starting at the elementary school. Middle school already has a lot of new furniture from the renovation. It's more of the common space furniture and not the classroom furniture, but they're slated to go towards the tail end of the rollout. So that's the biggest priority. And then beyond that, it's a lot of technology. We have classroom projectors at the elementary school that are old, some of them were even brought over from Central before we built the new building. And so the ones that even were put in new are going on 10 years old. So they're obsolete. I'm expecting that to be between $80,000 and $100,000. And then we also have the district phone system, which is, right now it's expired. It's not supported anymore, so we need to do something with our phone system. And we're looking at different options, leasing versus buying. A single path, our technology partners are helping through that, and they've identified some very cost-effective options that are a lot less expensive than I was anticipating. So I think we'll be able to do that relatively shortly. We're also, these are the non-sexy things. Our access control system is very antiquated. Just like we were giving everyone new IDs because we're switching our printers over from the RFIDs to barcodes. And earlier this week, nobody could get in the building because when we tried to set it up, it wasn't working. So we really need to address that. And that, again, Single Path has been helping us with and found some very good options. I couldn't even get in the building. I had to get buzzed in, and
I was the only one that could get in.
So those are some of the things we're looking at. We have the front playground at LBES. I don't know if you recall, about 2 years ago, we did the back playground for the K through 2, made it more accessible for children with all abilities, and we have plans to do that in the front as well. That is something that both the PTO and the Alliance have expressed interest in helping us pay for, or in sponsoring the whole thing. So that is on the list, and we're working with other organizations to look at funding for that. And then the other 2 big items are the parking lots. The west parking lot at the middle school is in pretty bad shape. I don't know if you've been there recently, but we're looking at, we're going to be seal coating and patching it this summer, trying to get a couple more years out of it, because when it does need to be replaced and ripped out, it's going to be probably $250,000 project, so that's going to be expensive. And then there's air handlers at LBMS that are currently working, so I don't want to touch them, but that's also something that is going to be a expensive project, another $250,000 in the next 5 years.
They're the original?
Yes.
Yeah.
First of all, Jay, I would say I've never heard you use the word "it's not sexy," so it kind of took me aback. I have to think about that a little bit. I did also want to add that as Jay is doing all this planning, he's also taking into account the Regional Office of Education codes For instance, all the rugs that all the teachers set up to really support their curriculum, make it feel like a home atmosphere when they're learning to read, all that. Now they all have to have special tags saying that they're flame resistant. And so he's building that into the plan too, and eventually the teachers will pick their rug from the list of rugs that are certified to, and qualified for that. And that's been hard because teachers have bought things that make their classrooms their own rooms. So he's balancing that with his furniture project, which again, this whole thing fits in the big picture of the 20-year facility plan. So we've come a long way in 8 years. And Jay, you've done a lot with this, so he just wanted to tell you what the projects would be the next couple summers so that you know.
I really appreciate you doing that work. And I know from when we first came on the board, there was almost nothing planned. So we really had no idea what needed to be done. And I really love to see the level of detail, knowing that even if something happens, you need to make a change, at least we sort of have a fix on where we are. So appreciate that.
This is also important to all of you because in April, Jay will be bringing budget parameters for the 2021 calendar, and this all fits in the budget parameters as well. So
When we first came on, when Leanna and I first came on the board, we used to get feedback from many members of the community about how can you guys not have a facilities plan? How can you not be looking 20 years out? How can you not be, well, it took a while, but it's really nice to see it in action. And so every time you do a budget, you've got that in front of you, and I think it's just a good example of facilities planning in action effectively, so we appreciate it. All right, so now we're gonna move to action items. Item A is the approval of the 2021 field trips at the elementary school and the middle school. Jean, you gonna give us a summary of that?
I just want to remind everybody, like I do every year, the reason the board approves these is because our board policy specifically states that any field trips that are out of state, over so many miles, or overnight, all need to be approved by the board prior to the field trips. So a couple years ago, we just picked a month and we get all the approvals for the field trips in 1 month.
Is there any questions or comments before we get into that? May I have a motion to approve the 2021 field trips as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Leanne Charlo?
Yes.
Julie Gottschall? Yes. Richard Haig?
Yes,
Long days. Ann Hill? Yes. Mark Berry?
Yes.
John Morris?
Yes.
And the motion is approved, even with and without Julie. All right, item B, the resolution authorizing the honorable dismissal of part-time teachers. And due to Illinois state law, all part-time teachers who have not been grandfathered from previous years in the district will be released every year. We do this every year because under Senate Bill 7, all teachers must be placed in a group for reduction in force purposes. All part-time teachers go into Group 1 and do not have the right to automatically be renewed, but instead are released and then rehired back based upon the need. This is the 5th year we've done this. It's likely that all of the part-time teachers that we have this year will be hired back in April based upon our approved staffing plan. Anything you'd like to add?
We actually have one that, and I forgot to change this on here, we have one for a part-time early childhood class that will not be renewed because we don't have the enrollment for that class, if you remember when Kevin went through that with us. So,
Any questions or
and that person knows that already.
any questions about that? So may I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing honorable dismissal of part-time teachers as presented by the administration?
so moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Julie Gottschall, yes. Richard Haig?
Yes,
Ann Hill? Yes. Mark Berry?
Yes.
John Rosen?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo?
Yes.
Motion is approved. This month's personnel report will include the non-licensed new hire of Sydney Stagg, a teaching assistant, replacing Nicole Balick at the middle school, effective March 9th, at a salary of $15 an hour. It will also include a licensed new hire, transfer, change in position, Vanessa Grum, currently a Spanish EL teacher, moving from 0.8 to 1.0 at the elementary school. This is all per our licensed staffing plan, and it is effective the 2021 school year. Any questions or comments about that? So may I have a motion to approve the personnel report for March 10th, 2020, as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Richard Haig?
Yes.
Ann Hill?
Yes.
Mark Barry?
Yes.
John Rosen?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo?
Yes.
Julie Gotchall, yes.
Motion is approved. The consent agenda. This month's consent agenda includes the open session meeting minutes for the February 25th, 2020 regular Board of Ed meeting, the treasurer's report, the impress report, the bills report, and the P-card report. Would anybody like any of that pulled for further discussion? I'm going to ask that we pull the meeting minutes from last meeting because I wasn't here, and I'm going to abstain from that vote, but I'll vote on all the others. So consent agenda will just include the treasurer's report, impress report, bills report, and P-card report. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for March 10th, 2020 as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ann Hill?
Yes.
Mark Barry?
Yes.
John Rosen?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo?
Yes.
Julie Gotchall, yes. Richard Haig?
Yes.
So I'm going to circle back to those meeting minutes, and I'm going to abstain, but may I have a motion to approve the open session meeting minutes from February 25th, 2020, regular Board of Ed meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments about that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. I think I was able to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's it for the action items. We have one FOIA report, FOIA request, which is, the details of which are in your board packets. Any public comments from anybody in the audience or anybody on the board? I think that's it. So may I have a motion to adjourn at 7:52 PM?
So moved.
6:52.
Oh, 6:52, wow.
It's really 7:52. They just haven't worked on the clock yet.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. All right, Leanne, Mark, here's your signing. I'm going to sit right here.